Hello and welcome to the channel. Welcome back to another video. In this one, myself and George from Ingenuity Fantasy, which if you don't know about Ingenuity Fantasy, then check out the link in the description. It's a cool website. It's got all sorts of stuff. It's got articles from various people on different subjects like captaincy and differentials. It's got a transfer wizard which can help you with which players to buy. It's got match stats from Opta, and it's got the rankings that myself and George will be talking about today. These rankings are our top 10 in each category. So that is premium defenders, cheap defenders, premium mids, cheap mids, premium forwards, cheap forwards. So let's get straight into it.
Right, hello and welcome back to another edition of the FPL Player Ranking Series. This week, we were going to kick off with defenders, but not a huge amount of movement or a huge amount to talk about from last week. I think one good place to start is Munoz. Let's start with Munoz. So last week I did leave him off, but that was naturally because he is serving a suspension. But I mean, Palace's fixtures look, as good as they have done all season. And Munoz is just incredibly attacking when he's on the field. And I'm assuming that's probably why you've got him high as well.
Yeah, for sure. I really like him, to be fair. I think after this week he may even jump higher up my list. He's at 3 this week for me, but yeah, fixtures are really good, and like you say, he is ridiculously attacking. He's basically getting in the box as much as most of the Palace forwards, so yeah, I really like him.
Yeah, and 4 points. I mean, I think he started the season at 5 million, which I remember, was a couple people took the bait, couple people didn't. It was probably a good line for him, but now he's dropped down to about 4.7, I believe. Yep. So now that's definitely an incentivizing price. And then another thing that's worth talking about. So Fulham, another team with excellent fixtures. We all know Anthony Robinson. We all know how good he is. But where do you stand on the Castagna v Robinson debate? Is the extra bit worth? Because we know Castagna can be attacking as well, but Robinson is definitely the better player. So where do you land on? Because I've brought Castagna into my list actually. Even though it's a 9, but you haven't. So where do you stand on?
Yeah, I like Castagna. To be fair, if I'm buying one, I'm buying Castagna because I don't think that Robinson is 0.7 million better than Castagna is. I do think Robinson is better, but not that much better. So yeah. I do really like it. And yeah, like I say, if I'm bringing one of them in, then I'm bringing in Castagna just because I think that at that price he's ridiculous value. I just think that there's better options at the more expensive price, and that's the reason he's not in the list. But for his price, he's brilliant.
Yeah. So because I think Brad's actually brought him into his team while actually leaving him off the list. So he just wanted to gatekeep Castagna from all of you. So I just thought I'd let you all. I just thought I'd keep you guys all informed. And then, so Gomez as well. I'm still, Gomez is gradually sliding down my list as Kanate is getting, closer and closer to fitness. But he's still hanging around 6 just because I know they did ship 3 against Tottenham. I know they have been a little bit leaky, but they have shown that they are a good defence. And, the fixtures are slightly better in that sense. I don't know where you land on Gomez or...
I really like him as a player, to be fair. I thought that he was brilliant against Spurs as well. Like you say, they shipped 3 goals, but I did think that Gomez and Van Dijk were particularly good. And to be honest, he kind of is good every time he plays centre-back, really. I don't like him when he plays full-back, but at centre-back with Van Dijk, he's always good. I just can't have him in my list because, for the next 5, I don't think he plays all of the next 5 games.
Yeah,
that's the only reason.
And that's completely understandable. I just think, given that 3 of their next 4 against Leicester, West Ham and Nottingham Forest, all teams which, haven't been lighting it up on the attacking end of the ball, I just think, there's probably a clean sheet or 2 in there. And then the final one worth talking about. So Olareina, this man is the 2nd highest scoring defender in FPL. Nottingham Forest again showcasing their ability to keep clean sheets, and they've got Everton, Wolves and Southampton in their next 5. Forest defence is the real deal then.
Yeah, I kind of like them, to be honest. again, like you say, their fixtures are kind of good now, which is why we've seen over the last few weeks Aina go into our list. We've seen Wood come into our lists, or jump up the list. But yeah, no, he's a bit expensive is the only issue really. I think he's 5 million now, so he is quite a lot of money, but he is the nailed fullback in that team. I think maybe if you are buying a Forest defender, Milenkovic is potentially the way to go, just because it saves you a bit of money. But we have seen that the fullbacks are actually getting a little bit more attacking now. At the start of the season, neither fullback was particularly that attacking, but we're seeing that change a little bit now. So yeah, I really like him.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just, I think, he has shown his capability to actually go forward and get a goal on a couple of occasions. Sometimes that, if that difference is only about 0.3 or 0.4 billion, sometimes you do get rewarded for going for it, like you would have, if you had picked Aina earlier in the season. So if you're someone who has the extra cash and likes the sort of attacking output value, then absolutely he's a great option. And then premium defenders, not a huge amount of movement. I think one point of discussion is Calafiori slid down a bit for me. Now that is for no other reason than Ben White's return is on the horizon. It's the same reason that Gomez slid down the cheap defenders for me. But I think Calafiori will probably be the one on the block when Ben White does return, and that's why he's the one that's taking that hit.
Yeah, he stayed where he is for me, just because it's more a lack of other premium defenders. That's the reason he's kind of still up there for me. Like the players underneath him. So I've got Gvardiol. Admittedly, Gvardiol is kind of close. Then Cucurella, Chardallo, none of them are particularly doing that much to go ahead of Calafiori. I do think over the next 5, Calafiori should get 3 or 4 starts, I'd like to think. So for me, that's enough to keep him above these guys. But I do agree that if you are looking at bringing in an Arsenal defender, I don't think I'd be bringing in Calafiori now.
Yeah, for sure. And Cucurella. So Cucurella has now served his suspension. He's now back in the team. And when he's played for Chelsea, especially going forward, he's looked brilliant. And Chelsea actually were able to register a clean sheet last game as well. Which,
without him.
Without it's very true. Without him. And to be fair, it's hard to say he wasn't at fault for a few of their goals in the Tottenham game either. But I think it's good to see that Chelsea's defence has got it together somewhat.
A
lot of us were hoping that they'd have a couple more clean sheets over this stretch. But I just think Cucurella offers enough going forward. To hold some value.
He does. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on the fact that Chelsea defence have got it together. I think it was more the fact that they played against Everton, who are quite terrible going forward at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I still do quite like Cucurella. Again, he's at that awkward price. He's not like your like 6 million premiums, but he's also not that cheap. So he's at a bit of an awkward price, but I do quite like him. As you say, like he does get forward every now and then. Chelsea kind of play a couple of different setups where sometimes he's allowed to be a bit more attacking, sometimes he's not. But either way, they've got great fixtures. So even if he's not kind of really attacking, then he's still got plenty of clean sheet opportunities. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's all it is. It's the fact that he's basically a double threat because of Chelsea's fixtures at the moment. That's why he gets about halfway for me. I think that rounds out the defenders segment. If you want to let us know what you think of mine and Brad's list, let us know if you think there's anyone we missed, and we will see you for the midfielders. Right, and welcome back to the midfielders segment. So we will kick off straight away with cheap mids. I think the best place to start here, the bloke's gone straight back to number 1, both of me and Brad's lists. I think we're just both in love with Bournemouth's attack at the moment, and as a result, the talisman Semenyo has, reclaimed his place at 1.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's watched any of my videos in the last month, then they'll know how much I love Semenyo. He's just, Bournemouth attack is third for XG throughout the whole season. Only Liverpool and Chelsea are better. He plays the most minutes in that attack, and he's taken the second most shots in the league behind Haaland. Like, what is there not to like about that? I mean, yes, he wasn't getting points for, admittedly, quite a few game weeks. Like, it was a full-on drought, but that just wasn't going to continue. So yeah, there's just nothing not to like from my end.
I think we see this problem quite a lot with how reactionary people are with bringing players out of their teams. Just because a return isn't there. If they've taken a crazy amount of shots for a crazy, have a crazy amount of XG, those returns will come. And it's better not to be knee-jerk, because especially it means you're just going to end up wasting a transfer on someone who's doing the right things anyway. I get if it goes to like 5 or 6 weeks of frustration, but if it's just a couple, just hold it out, because the return will be round the corner, especially in an attack that's been this incredible. Which I think leads us on to Kluivert. So Kluivert has shot up my list. He's gone up yours as well, and I think the main thing about Kluivert, the fact that he's on penalties for Bournemouth, is absolutely massive. But he's also taken a really high amount. I think he's taken the third highest shots out of anyone in this price bracket over the last sort of 5 games. And that's as part of a team that has Semenyo in it. So it just goes to show you how good Bournemouth's attack really is.
Yeah, and if you're a penalty taker in a team that is one of the best attacks in the league at 5.5 million, again, there isn't much to not like about that. Apart from his minutes, granted, he's not a 90-minute man, and he won't be. He is prone to an early sub almost every single game, but still, at his price, is ridiculous. He is on 4 yellow cards though, which is one thing to mention, so a ban could be coming, but I think there's only 2 weeks now that he needs to avoid a yellow card for, and then it resets. So yeah.
So yeah, fingers crossed on that point. And then Sarr. I mean, this bloke's been lighting it up the last couple of weeks. And Palace's fixtures, as you mentioned before, are now pretty good. They've got Bournemouth, Southampton, Leicester, West Ham, and Brentford as 5 of the next 6, and it's Brentford at home as well, where they're one of the worst teams in the league. So I think the fixtures are there for Sarr, the results have been there for Sarr, and he seems to be assuming that talismanic role, that sort of Eze role over the last couple of games.
Yeah, especially as we know that Eze can't stay fit for 5 minutes, and we also know that Glasner's come out and said that Mateta can't play 90 every game. Like, he will be managing his minutes, so Sarr is the one who will play all the minutes basically, and he's been basically taking all of the XGI as well in that team. So yeah, again, for 5.7 million with those fixtures, he's a really good option.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now, there's quite a few players in that real budget range between the sort of 5 million and 5.7, 5.8 range, with your Iwobis, your Amads, your Kluiverts, your Sarrs, your Enzos. There's just so many options there that I think it's really handy for those who are trying to accommodate, whether it be an Isak, whether it even be a Haaland for the next, set of fixtures. These are the guys that are going to help you do that. And speaking of those guys, so Kulusevski, I have no idea how he is not in your list. He's had a goal in each of his last 3 games. And he's also started 4 games in a row now and played a full 90 in 3 of them. He's one of the main focal points of Tottenham's attack. He's more involved than Son at the moment. So yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand what your issue. You're still doubting his minutes then?
Yeah. I'll start by saying that Spurs' attack is brilliant. Has been all season. Their defence is a shambles. Don't get me wrong, but attack is fantastic. So there's nothing to worry about there. But it was only 4 or 5 weeks ago that we were saying the same thing about Brennan Johnson, and where's he been for the last 3-4 weeks? So I just think that these things, I can't go off a 4-week sample of them minutes. I just think that there's too much rotation going on there. Even though there hasn't been for the last few weeks, I think there will be rotation going on there.
Yeah. And, especially, I completely understand it. And that's why he's low for me, because he's a rotation risk. If he wasn't a rotation risk, I think we'd be looking at putting him 3 or 4 or something like that. But yeah, it's that small risk. But I think the upside just means that he does enter my list at all. And, if you check his heat map, he's playing the furthest up the field of anyone on that pitch. So I just think he has to warrant consideration at least. And then Martinelli. So I've left Martinelli off just because, there's a bit of concern for me maybe about rotations in, because, Jesus is being rotated into the team now. I'm hearing reports that Nwaneri is going to get quite a bit of time. Trossard, will naturally get his minutes here and there. I know the Saka injury should lead in that direction, but, I've just got a bit of doubts about Martinelli.
Yeah, that's fair. I think if there wasn't doubts, again, he'd be pretty high up this list.
Yeah.
Given that their fixtures are very nice as well. But the one thing I do like is that their really nice fixtures are kind of in the next 2 or 3. So Ipswich at home this week is pretty good. The one thing that's making me think that he will play that role is that when Saka went off, he did play it. He played over on the side that Saka was playing. So yeah, by no means are his minutes kind of reliable at all, but if he starts the next couple, then that could be quite big.
Yeah, for sure. So it's almost him and Kulusevski are almost in quite a similar spot in that sense. They've shown that when they do play and they do get involved, the upside really is there. It's just a minute's risk. And then premium mids. So premium mids, this would also be a good segment to consider, Saka replacements and, where we rank them. So, I mean, we've got Son at 3. I just think, he is Son. He has shown that he can, he can be the guy. There's, been a bit of a concern every other game, but then, he just goes and returns again. But Fernandes and Odegaard, they seem to be the main two that FPL Twitter is discussing as well. Where do you land on Fernandes v Odegaard?
Yeah, they are they're the 2 most popular replacements, I would imagine. So with Saka out, you'd like to think that Odegaard is probably on penalties, which makes him a much more desirable asset. Although we have seen in the past that Odegaard, and Saka just also kind of hand out penalties as and when. But Odegaard should be probably on them. He also, I think his minutes are just solid now. There was a couple of early subs a few weeks ago, but I think his minutes are just solid. The other option, one thing to mention as well, that obviously they won 5-1 at the weekend and he wasn't involved in anything. So there is that.
Yeah.
But then Bruno Fernandes, he is probably my favourite replacement. I just like kind of where he's playing under Amorim. He seems to be... He always tends to start the Premier League games as one of the 2 players behind the striker. Admittedly, sometimes he finishes the game a bit deeper, but his underlying numbers have been very good since Amorim came in. So yeah, I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, and what we have seen as well of Bruno this season is, because he is playing so far forward, often he's the one who's making the runs in behind. Like we saw against Man City, for example, where with the chip that he could have scored, that was him playing on the shoulder of the last man. So we are seeing a much more direct sort of setup under Amorim than we saw again, with Erik ten Hag, when sometimes he was even dropping, right back into where the 6th position was.
It's not just kind of assist threat now, which is what it's been in the past. It's also quite a lot of goal threat.
Yeah, and then obviously the fact that he's nailed on penalties, and United just seem to get a lot of them as well. So that is encouraging. And then speaking of Saka replacement, so Foden has come up to 6 for me. I've been hesitant to sort of hang my hat on Foden at all this season for completely obvious reasons. But I think last game we saw a bit of life out of him. He's playing a lot further forward. I think he took something like 6 shots on goal last game. Registered an XGI of 0.5. Got his goal against Villa. So, he may be, and the fixtures just are brilliant for City. You know, they've got Everton, Leicester, West Ham, Brentford, and Ipswich. So, you know, the fixtures are there, and you can easily see Foden, you know, continuing some of this form into those fixtures.
Yeah, the fixtures are there for sure, which is a reason to go there, I think. But for me, it's just the case that the other guys ahead of him, who are all pretty nailed, and some of which are on penalties, are just hard to put him above. So the likes of Fernandes, Odegaard and Bomo, they're all on penalties and pretty nailed. Gordon, Bowen are both almost nailed for 90 minutes every single game. I mean, Bowen's on some penalties as well when Paqueta's off the pitch. I just find it hard to put him above those when there is some kind of risk around his minutes. But yeah, the fixtures are definitely there. And if you want to go kind of for a more risky play, then I think he is the perfect way to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think what Foden offers over, you know, your Fernandes and your Odegaards, who seem to have caught the main bulk of the traction, is he offers a differential option. So, you know, if you're looking to make some ground up, then Foden could be a good option. But yeah, if you're already ahead, or, you know, you're doing pretty well, then it might, you probably want to play it slightly safer with the other guys. So yeah, that rounds out our midfielder section. Let us know if there's anyone you think we missed, and we will see you again for forwards. Right, and welcome back to the forwards section. Quite a few things to talk about this week on forwards, which has been a nice change. So the first one that I think we'll start with, you know, I mean, the top three is pretty much, you know, hasn't had a huge amount of variation. But Gabby Jesus, now the man has lit it up his last two games, and, you know, in a vacuum would look like a great option, but he might not be. But where do you stand on him?
Yeah, well, he's come straight into my list at 4. That's less to do with how good an option he is and more to do with the fact that I don't really like anyone else underneath him. The top 3 are still the top 3, but yeah, Jesus is probably the next best, just because the Saka injury helps him minutes wise, not kind of directly in that he's going to play right wing, but just more that there's other spots available for these other players. Also, yeah, if we're talking purely form, if you like, then you'd think he continues to get minutes. But it's the fixtures as well. Arsenal's fixtures are so good that even if he doesn't get great minutes, say he plays, I don't know, he starts and plays 60, he's still a better option than most other budget forwards. So that's,
and I think and I think this is that's the exact point for me. You know, that's why I've brought him up to 5. It's because at minimum, and the way Arsenal are rotating at the moment, at minimum he's going to get 20-30 a game. So, you know, whether he starts, and that's brilliant, there's no chance he's being kept off the pitch for the entire game, the way he's playing at the moment. And, you know, Arsenal's attack, it's undeniably did look pretty good with him in it. So I can't see a reason that Arteta would keep him off the field. So I think that's why he's there for both of us. So, you know, we'll see if it continues. And, you know, if he shows that he's going to string together a couple of starts in a row, then he's going to be, you know, bolted to the top of this list. But I think, you know, we're just at the point now where we just want to see a little bit more before we commit to sliding him even higher. And then, so Strand Larsen has come up for me. This is just with the Cunha ban. Now, Wolves haven't got the best attack in the league, but you know, they have shown that they are capable of getting a couple of goals on their day. And I just think with Cunha out, so much of that pie is going to fall into Larsen's lap. Yeah,
I mean, well, if we continue with the pie analogy, I think the pie gets considerably smaller with Cunha out, in all fairness, given that he is the creative force a lot of the time for them. But again, for me, it's just a lack of other options. Like Strand Larsen will, minutes-wise, is brilliant compared to someone like Raul, who's probably a better option, but minutes-wise is a mess. Then there just isn't anyone to put above him, really. Especially as he's actually really cheap as well. So I really don't mind him as a kind of enabling option.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think the final bit I want to touch on, and it's almost criminal that I've still only got him at 10, because I do think we just see a bit more, is John Duran. Now, the man has now strung together 3 starts in a row and 3 goals in a row. The only reason he is not higher for me is because I do think there's a little bit of, Watkins, especially for the first 2, was still coming off a bit of a knock. Now, because Duran's so good, that's probably been a reason they haven't rushed Watkins back, and they've only been giving him small minutes to feed him back in. But if Duran starts over Watkins one more game in a row now, I think that injury excuse is gone, and Duran is shooting into my top 3, and Watkins is crumbling down to the bottom 3 in my premiums.
Yeah, I'd love nothing more than for Duran to become an option, but for me, he still isn't. I just need more starts. If he for me, if he strings together like 6 or 7, then we're talking. Then I can up him. Well, then I can put him in the list actually. But
yeah,
for me, I just need more starts. Again, I'd love nothing more than for him to be an option, but for me, he just isn't all the time that Watkins is fit.
Yeah,
supposedly.
I think the problem there is if you bring him in after 6 or 7, then you'll have missed the boat from the people who brought him in after 3 or 4.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But yeah, I think I may even put my money where my mouth is and bring him in, just because the way my team's set up, I've actually got decent bench cover. So I think if you have decent bench cover, then he is a pretty good dice. Even though he will probably get 10 or 20 minutes at the end of the game, but that is where the risk is, and the upside is just so huge that I just think it could be worth it. And then so moving on to premiums. So I have finally gone and done it. I have I've had enough of Haaland. This man's not doing enough for me. And I'm a Newcastle fan, and Isak just he's playing like one of the best strikers on the planet at the moment. So he's shot into one for me. He's had 6 goals in his last 4 games. The man looks unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, he really is, yeah. And again, he's one that I brought into my actual team this week, so that went very nicely. But I think if Haaland had worse fixtures, I would also put Isak above him. But Haaland's and City's fixtures are just so nice that I still think there's potential there for him to go mental. So yeah. He stays at 1 and Isak stays at 2, but the gap is getting smaller week by week.
Yeah. I think for me it's just, if you take Haaland right now the way he's playing, you take Isak the way he's playing right now, they both cost 11 million. I think I do go Isak.
Yeah, I don't. Not a chance.
Yeah. I really think I do.
Not even close, actually, for me. Not for me.
But what are we seeing out of Haaland? That's giving you encouraging numbers. He's blanked his last 2 games. In his last 6 games, he's got 1 goal and 1 assist.
Yeah,
that's abysmal.
Terrible.
That is bad. That's bad for even the bottom of the cheap strikers list.
Yeah, but it's fixtures for me. Their fixtures are really nice. The same way that you wanted Foden in the mids for those fixtures. Yeah. The fixtures are just there for Haaland.
Yeah, I mean Foden's at least returned last game though.
Yeah.
But I mean I completely get it. I do understand. I just think after a certain point, there is a certain amount of faith that I place in, XG and fixtures and shots on goal and the underlying stats for Haaland we've seen have been there for ages. He went through that stretch afterwards where his XG was one of the highest in the league as well, and he just wasn't finishing. So I think in that sense, I don't even doubt him to get in the right positions, but I think he's also undergoing a bit of a confidence crisis at the moment. And I think that just we've seen that just can hurt overall output, particularly into FPL.
Yeah, I generally, and the team in general just don't seem, or it's not even they don't seem, they are not at it, not even close to being at it. And I don't really see, unless Pep actually changes something like fundamental, like something quite big, then, which he doesn't seem to want to do. Like usually he does do that. Usually, even when they're playing well, he'll decide, I need to do this random new thing.
Yeah,
but he's not doing it when they're not playing well, which is an interesting one. But yeah,
I think they might be in for a busy January at this rate, or at least they should be the way they are going. And then so Watkins, I'm giving him one more week at 6 because I'm under the idea that he's being eased in back from injury. But like I said earlier on the Duran point, if Watkins is benched for Duran one more game, I can't just say that's injuries. That's solely returning from injury at that point. And so Watkins will then tumble down my list, which I think he already has for you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Watkins and Cunha. So let's talk about Cunha first. Cunha's gone down to 9 for me because there's a ban coming. So that's what needs to be said on naturally. That. But then Watkins has also dropped below Mateta and Gakpo. Again, it's not that I think they're fantastic options. It's that Watkins, I just think there's too much uncertainty with Watkins and Duran. Like Duran's playing too well for Watkins to be starting every single game. Yeah. So I just think they can share minutes now. They can share starts, which is not good if you're 8.9 million and you play for Aston Villa. Yeah. But on kind of Mateta and Gakpo, I mean, we've seen. I do actually think that Gakpo is probably the first choice left wing option at Liverpool.
Ooh, I don't know. I think that's probably Diaz.
I don't think it is. I think that I do think that Gakpo is the preferred option. I think it is quite close. They're both very, very good, but I think that Diaz is probably going to be used down the middle more than the left. I think at the moment. Obviously, Jota's coming back, so I think that he shares minutes there as well. But by no means do I think Gakpo is going to play like loads of minutes and he's going to be the one that's starting every week. Don't get me wrong, he's not gone up my list because of that. It's more that I just think Watkins and Cunha were a lot worse options now. And again, with Mateta as well, he's not. I mean, Glasner has literally said that he's not going to play 90 minutes every game. Yeah. But when they can have him on the pitch, they will. And their fixtures are brilliant. So, and also with Eze out, he is on penalties, I believe. So,
I believe
another good reason.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, the point about fixtures is ideal. I personally, I'm a little less sure on Liverpool assets. I think for me, the 4 that I see them going with, at least based off last game as well, is they've got Diaz on the left, and then they'll have Szoboszlai at the 10, Jota up top, and Salah on the right. And then I think Núñez and Diaz will get rotated for Gakpo. They'll rotate for Gakpo and Jota. I think those are where the main areas of rotation is. I think Szoboszlai will get rotated here and there, but he actually seems to be, holding down. I mean, at least off last game, Szoboszlai was absolutely fantastic. But I just think because they're so blessed with that many great attacking options, I just think it's really hard to trust any of them not named Salah.
Yeah, I wouldn't go near any of them personally. Yeah. If I wouldn't bring any of them in for sure. But yeah, it's more that I just think Gakpo. Well, I think Gakpo will get more minutes than Darwin, which is why he's ahead of him to begin with.
Yeah, I agree
for sure. I think it is kind of a Jota, Diaz, Gakpo. They're the 3 that Slot seems to like. Yeah, and then Darwin is below them. But like I say, I wouldn't touch any of them personally.
Yeah, completely agree. That rounds out the attackers segment. If you let us know what you think of our lists, and I will see you next week when I've got John Duran at 1 and hopefully Brad sees the light. So, right, take care.
And that wraps up this one. As I mentioned in the intro, if you haven't already, then check out ingenuityfantasy.com. The link is in the description. All sorts of good stuff on there. But for now, Have a good Christmas, and we will see you in the next one.